How and why is this film scary?
I think it's good if somebody thinks it's scary. If it scares them, that's good. I certainly, it's unconscious when you're creating, when you're making an image or shooting a shot or then putting sound to it. You never consciously, for me, I never consciously say, "Ooh, that's scary." It's the aggregate sum of, the scenes put together that maybe make people feel scary. It's great being in an audience and hearing somebody behind me say, "Oh my God, that scared the shit out of me." Like that's a great feeling. I think, when you don't show things, when you deal with mysteries, when you let things linger, when you deal with unknown elements, when you're getting a great actor who's actually really feeling scared or unsure, that the audience connects to that. Right. I'm not sure if it's subject matter as much as it's the idea of perception and the idea that, like, oh my God, should I be afraid? Is there something out there? It's a combination of a lot of different elements, I believe.
And then you had to continue this feel throughout the whole film. How did you assemble it? And how you took the screenplay and just getting involved in the screenplay and making this into a film. How did you approach it so you could take this tension and bring it throughout the entire film without it becoming monotonous or?
Well, a lot of it is, when you try and work on a script, you try and organize it almost musically, and you try and think, okay, you've got this big moment here and a big crescendo dynamically, and then, okay, now you need to come down and trail down and let it linger. Okay, so you want to go to maybe something a little quieter dialogue scene, and then here comes another event. So you don't want to put 4 climaxes in a row because they cancel themselves out, and dynamically you don't want to have too long of a section between where nothing's happening, or if nothing's happening, sometimes that's good because it creates the tension or the expectation for something else to happen. And all that goes into your planning and in your mind, and then you shoot it, and it's like, okay, well, what did you really get? So then the second process is you watch the assembly and you watch your raw material, and then you have to reshape it back to what your original motivation was, as well as what new things came out of what you learned, what new insights came out of shooting, what mistakes happened, what similarities start to happen, and what becomes a thematic consistency and what becomes a kind of special instrument, like, oh, we're only going to hear that here the one time, or that's a scene where this dissipates, but it brings on, it turns and something new comes in. So I look at it kind of musically, graphically, trust my collaborators, trust the editor, and sit there and try and shape it to be a cohesive experience. But that's that fine line between what's cohesive and what's boring, where do you give a little variety, and
do you use dailies? I mean, do you plan out the scenes in any specific way so as you're going through the film you're seeing what you're capturing, and then you can continue on a thread? Or
it's, on this, yeah, I'd watch dailies to see what felt right to me, but not to a point where about 2/3 of the way through the movie, before we moved into the long chunk of Richard alone in the motel room, I watched the movie that had been assembled up to that point and showed it to him and showed it to Laura and said, okay, here's where we are, because the motel room scenes were kind of sprinkled throughout. It was kind of like a core, and it was his room / his internal space. And a couple of the scenes, him rolling over in bed, seeing Deborah, him having the strange experience in the bathroom where he smashes his head, him getting the phone call from the guy saying it wasn't me, and we play the mirror gag trick where so those ideas of identity and destruction of identity were all fresh ideas that weren't in the script. They came out of us watching and saying, you know what we really need here? We need him to be unraveling a little bit more here. We need a little emotional burst before he sees his wife in the street. We need to feel this thing building up. So that was fun. That was probably the best part of the shoot, being able to improv and design that stuff. It wasn't like writing it on, there's no real dialogue, so we weren't really like get the screenwriters in here. But Richard and I, we knew the movie so well at that point that we were able to kind of say, this is where he is. I need this kind of piece here, and let's try this version of this piece. And you know, we would try different things in it, knowing that that energy would go in that space.
Okay. And culminating with his breakdown on the phone with Laura Linney.
Yeah, but that was scripted. I mean, that was pretty much.
Yeah. But you had to build that up to get there and
yes.
feel that
for
gut
him, yes.
pain.
And it was a fine line between, you didn't want to make it a, you know, it's not a love story where, and how present you made Mary. You know, you don't want to make it so top heavy that the audience would be like, oh my God, dude, pick up the phone. But you wanted to create the iconography of the phone as torture enough to make him not pick it up, you know.
In each frame, each shot just seems like it was so meticulously planned as far as the detail in the background and the what I call little Pellingtonisms, you know, you throw in there. Is that accurate, or is that my imagination, or?
It's pretty obsessive. I mean, I love eyes, you know what I mean? I don't know. That would, I mean, some people think, oh, too many close-ups of eyes, but I don't know. I'm a
relate to the creature or the animal.
Sure, because it was in her eye and it was there, and then it disappeared, which we completely invented later. That was never even in the plan. In the script, it was that it was in the photo, and it was like kind of over her shoulder. But then when we were editing, we're like, wait a second, if the whole thing was about did she see it or not, then we should put it right in her eye. I design a movie kind of, I would say it would normally be graphic. I like graphic locations or kind of a more graphic sensibility. I try to open up my palette more than Arlington Road, which is very rigid in terms of color. I tried to open it up, but still have a very defined palette. So if you pick a location or design a set and you have a palette and you have a kind of a control over that, it should be the kind of thing that anywhere you put the camera, depending on the lens, you should be able to find something interesting. That's my goal, is to create a world where, okay, anywhere I look, I like it. You know, or maybe it's negative in the motel room, like, okay, I want to play with 80% of the frame is negative space of this maroon, and I'm going to put the lamp here. Or if I go closer, I can put the lamp symmetrically going this way and let the light trail down and put him on the opposite. Yeah, symmetry and off angles. And yeah, I mean, I come out of probably training myself graphically at MTV, would be sitting at a screen and looking at it and just, oh, I like this here, I like this. So I kind of trained myself pictorially and just kind of organically, intuitively. I would drive camera operators crazy because they would be, oh, here's the shot, and I'd be like, okay, that's great, here, let me.
So quickly, working with superstar Richard Gere and Oscar nominee Laura Linney, your thoughts?
Richard was a consummate pro, never, very supportive of my process and, you know, methodology and visualization, never combative, but communicative, and was always trying to find the best of a scene. Laura, the same way. Learned a lot from her about directing actors. You know, learned a lot from her about not being able to artificially manufacture moments and how they needed to come out organically from a character's experience. But she also was open to my process, so not coming out of a classically trained theater background. I come from a kind of left field methodology in how I communicate with actors, and so that was really fun. It was a good experience working with them, not a headache.
And what do you want people to take out of this film once they leave and they sit there for a while and digest? And
I want them to, God, that's such a, I want them to feel I want them to feel whatever they want to feel. I want them to feel that having had a fulfilling film experience. You know, when you leave a movie and be like, I really enjoyed that, or that stuck with me. I'm not saying it's the most profound movie that should stick with them and haunt them for a long time, but I think that hopefully something they come out of and feel like they were filled up, that it was you walk out and say, oh, it was a good movie. That was a good film. I enjoyed that. That was a good experience that connected to me on a lot of different levels. So that's what I hope.
You were saying this is the scariest movie that you've been involved with.
Yeah.
Why and how is it scary?
You know, there was a film, probably the scariest movie I've ever seen, was a film that Joe Losey made in the 60s, and it was called The Servant. And Harold Pinter wrote this, and there wasn't any monster, but it was a psychological drama about dominance and transference of personality. And it shook me to my essence. Scarier than any monster movie I could imagine. And I think that's what we wanted to get, or what I wanted to get out of this film, is that it's not the monster outside, it's the monster inside. Exactly. And the monster inside is created by us. The monster we perceive out there is only there because it exists inside of us. Right. Now, we also went to great pains in this film to not make the Mothman, whatever it is, monolithic. Everyone perceives it in a different way. Exactly. And even the guy we would expect to have the most horrific experiences, which is, my brain.
Will Patton?
Will. Will's character, in the end, is totally sanguine with the energy of this thing, whatever it is. To him, it's white light. Him, it's totally balanced and inviting and warm. So in many ways, what people are talking about is a death experience when they have this experience with this thing, whatever it is. And as we're taught in many different cultures, that death experience is radically different and based on the content of our minds.
Okay. Roman Polanski was also a master at creating a chilling effect in his film with Repulsion and Rosemary's Baby.
I brought up Repulsion to him quite a bit in some of those moments of creating, again, kind of a hallucinogenic feeling. Repulsion probably more than any of them, because it's such a tone poem of just an essential quality of eeriness and chilly creepiness, and that you don't know if you're in a mad person's mind, or we really are experiencing something that exists out of mind.
Right. Now, throughout this film, you have various degrees of fear. How do you prepare for that as an actor to be able to make it believable? Because there are different degrees of fear that you experience. You know, whether you're on the phone with the entity or...
Well, you got to be clear. I mean, most of this was shot out of sequence. Most movies are. So you've got to have a good sense of where you're at in the story all the time. And there are different types of reactions. Obviously, the stuff in the beginning when my wife is ill is a mixture of the emotion any of us would have with a family member or a loved one of any kind who's sick and losing them. But that's also mixed with Deborah Messing, who's so terrific in the film. Her total belief in her experience that something happened to her, something otherworldly. And that's really what infects the movie. It's actually Deborah's performance. That's the tone for the whole film.
And you talk about being in a constant state of meditation. You know, everything you do is you're meditating in a way.
We all are. It just depends on what you meditate on. You meditate on anger and hatred, or you meditate on love and compassion.
I just wanted to know if when fear comes into your life, if there's a way that you use this to find a solution quickly.
Well, one thing I find, what we're led to believe, and our bodies kind of lead us to believe, in our normal brain, the usual brain, leads us to believe, is our first reaction is the most honest one, which is when you get hit, that kind of reaction of to come back, you feel very powerful. You feel like, well, that's the right thing, but in fact, it's not at all. So one thing that I have learned is to give any strong emotion space. Any strong emotion. You know, unless you're a Buddha, which we aren't, but any strong emotion is going to be tied to some kind of attachment. which is only going to lead to some kind of negative result. So just leaving a little space, let the heated emotion, no matter what it is, whether you perceive it as positive or negative,
Right.
let it cool a bit, let some wisdom rise, be fueled by the emotion, the energy of the emotion, but the energy then is feeding wisdom as opposed to action.
Just talk about Laura Linney, working with her again in Mark Pellington's direction. I know you probably watch dailies, but when you saw it for the first time.
Well, Laura is, you know, she was the secret weapon.
Yeah.
And now she's not a secret anymore. Everyone knows, you know, how terrific she is. And a part that could have been really a stock character, I think she's done a lot with. And I just love working with her. I'd work with her on anything. So I was delighted to work with her again on this. Mark did a very interesting thing with me early on. We had discussions about what the film could be, what was latent in the script and we could bring out. And Mark very quickly translated those talks into images, and he sent me a book of images that he had pulled, whether it was photographic, painting, drawings, little phrases, but just start to create a universe of images, just like you do as a child. You start to pile up information that creates our universe. And the universe of Mothman was starting to emerge in that. And you could see what he was going to try to do anyhow in terms of images, which was feeding the kind of emotion that I wanted this piece to have also. So I think we were all working in the same drive chain.
Okay. This film is a departure from previous films. How were you involved? When did you get involved? And were you involved in the script writing process?
This was bought by Tom Rosenberg, a friend of mine, producer, probably 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Gave me the script to read. I was intrigued by it. It was not the usual film I am drawn to, but it had a really powerful narrative, strong, driving narrative, but it also had these other possibilities. It wasn't quite sure what the film was in that first draft. It hadn't made up its mind yet, whether it was a monster movie or it was a smart movie or what. And so we kind of dove in, and with many different writers and other directors involved, frankly, tried to solve the puzzle. I was pushing it into the metaphysics all the time. Tom also wanted to make a smart movie, but I think he also was, you know, was embracing the scary side of the movie, which, you know, it became obvious if you destroyed the scary part, the metaphysics became dry. So over 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, who knows how many drafts, it was losing itself. And I frankly started to drift away. I said, look, it's just not feeling good to me. And then Mark came in, kind of pulled the best of all these different drafts together and created a pretty streamlined story, which was the first time there was a balance, a good balance between the scary movie, the genre movie, and a smart movie that was really going to engage ideas. And then we all got together on that basis and started running with that script, adding to it, refining, rewriting characters, coming up with language that was more appropriate. You know, as his visual sense and sense of sound started to come in, we realized what we could do in terms of storytelling that wasn't in the verbal narrative, but was in more pure filmmaking.
And what do you want people to get out of this film when they leave the theater?
In the end, really, just that the universe is a benevolent place. Right. Essentially, we are moving towards light. You know, whatever we're going through at this point, it's all in service of getting there. Right. It's not to darkness we're going to light. Okay. And everything in the universe is there for us to get there. It's feeding us if we're open to it.
And I understand on the subject of fear, your son's middle name in Tibetan means fearless.
Exactly.
And could you give us his full name?
His full name is Homer James Jigme Gear.
Okay. And Jigme is fearless.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting thing. He not unlike Job, he's starting out with everything perfect in the beginning of the film. He's a guy with a nice job at the Washington Post. He and his wife are very much in love, and they're buying a new house. The mortgage is going to be a lot, but they're going to make it, and they're talking about a kid. And everything is perfect. And literally out of a laugh, everything's taken away. He loses his wife. The job becomes not what it was. He's in danger probably of losing his job. Years go by and he can't quite get it back together, but this obsessive quality he has about his wife still informs everything he does. He leaves for an interview late one night, and he finds that he traveled 600 miles without knowing what happened, how he got there. And he's in a small town where other people have been having bizarre things happen to them. And that sets us in motion, what this film is.
Why should I see this movie?
I think it's a smart film, and it's a scary film. And it's a rare thing, I think, in films today to get both of them. I think in some ways, in its best moments, I think it kind of shakes you to your foundations of what you believe reality is, or what the mind is, what madness is, why we're here, where we can go, what the possibilities are. And at the same time, it's a really strong, driving narrative that should really scare you. I've never done a movie like this. I mean, roles, it's interesting. I think I approach the roles the same way, so it's not that bizarre. But to do this, something that's essentially in this type of a genre, it's the first time I've done it, yeah.
Did you
And I
enjoy
think
it?
Mark, yeah, I did like it. I think Mark Pellington was a perfect director for this too, because he brought some things we found that you just can't say in this film. And you have to project ideas, deal with ideas, ask questions, sometimes not verbally, but with a camera. And it's an extremely difficult thing to do. And I think in many points in this film, he was able to give the visual equivalent of a question and an answer. And so, I mean, that's kudos to him on that.
This is a scary movie. People came out and they were very scared. I heard people were having nightmares last night. What do you attribute that to? How and why is this a scary film?
Well, I think the film is somewhat set apart because it's based on true events. Mm-hmm. A lot of times you have movies of this genre that are purely science fiction that are also terribly frightening. But the fact that these events did occur gives it an undertow that I think it goes in a little deeper.
And you play Sergeant Connie Parker. Mm-hmm. If you can elaborate on your character, and also if when you were a little girl, did you ever think of becoming a police officer?
I never once
Fantasies?
thought about being a police officer.
No.
As a child, it was never sort of a
nurse, possibly?
no,
Truman Show?
not for me. No. But Connie Parker is a police official in a small town, in the town where she grew up. So she has roots in this community and knows everybody very, very well. She grew up around them and amongst them, and consequently, she has a great sense of responsibility and goodwill towards this community. Mm-hmm. And when occurrences of the paranormal start to happen and really rock this whole group of people, she's the one who everyone looks to for wisdom or guidance or safety or some sense of stability. And even though she's terrified as well, she has to stay calm.
She seems like the calm in the storm. Mm-hmm. I mean, she's the rock that keeps the town together.
Well, I think her responsibilities to these people are so great, and she takes it so seriously, that she puts her own fears on the back burner. And she really does go through things very steadily and calmly, and she's very thoughtful and methodical about trying to figure out what's going on.
Okay. And you're working with Richard again. Mm-hmm. If you can elaborate on that, and then working with Mark Pellington. Right.
Well, one of the two main reasons why I wanted to be a part of this film was to work with Richard again, and also with Gary Lucchese. Both of them were, of course, associated with Primal Fear, which was one of my first films. So I have a deep connection to both of them. And then also working with Mark, who comes from such a visual, he's so visual in the way that he approaches his films, that's something that I had never encountered before. And I wanted the experience of being on a film that where the camera was so vitally important.
When you saw the film and when you were making it, what was the difference between how it was on the set shooting it? I know you watched dailies, but how did you feel when it came together?
I don't watch dailies, actually. I don't watch dailies. Well, you knew that the actual what was actually going to be cut together would be very, very different. You just have no idea what it was going to be.
Yeah,
I just knew it was going to be. I had no idea what it was going to be, but I knew it was going to be very visual, and with sort of some wild camera moves. So I didn't know what to expect when I saw it.
And also after watching it so many times, I came away with the thought that, you know, there are a lot of people in New York, Los Angeles, all over who are homeless. And a lot of these people may see things, or when you walk by them, they look like they're talking to someone or seeing something. And, you know, what's the difference between really maybe what they're experiencing and what is reality?
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
Well, I certainly know that when I've been around friends of mine who are dying, that there's a similar thing happens. And this is with, sadly, I've lost a lot of friends over the past few years. But the one thing that was true of all of them, though their deaths were very different, was that all of them were talking to other friends who had died or family members who had died before them. And whether or not it was real or whether or not it was just the body helping them die, you know, I don't know. And I really didn't care because it helped them.
It's soothing.
So it was comforting. And I think one thing that this movie does too is that something that is frightening might not be a bad thing. You know, even though you're very scared by something, if you really look at it, it might be something that's trying to help you. Maybe, but you know, it just makes you think about all that stuff.
Getting back to playing a sergeant, would you ever want to team up with Frances McDormand?
I would team up with Frances McDormand under any circumstance. Under any circumstance, I would team up with Frances McDormand. Yeah.
She's a great actress.
She's a great actress.
You would work well together.
Well, thank you. Connie Parker, who is a police officer in a small town in West Virginia, is a person who's grown up in this community, has roots there, who knows everybody, everyone knows her. And all of a sudden, her solid, kind, good community is experiencing paranormal activity, or what people say are paranormal events. And she just doesn't quite know what to make of it. And as things start to unfold and these events escalate, she becomes aware that there really is something going on here, that these people who she knows and respects and trusts are not hysterical. And she has to, sort of come to terms that there is something beyond explanation happening, at least in her own ability to explain things. But at the same time, not let herself or her community become hysterical because of it. This is a really hard movie to place in a genre. It's not science fiction. It's not a thriller. It's not action adventure. It has elements of those things. But because it is based on real events, it makes it a little different. You see a lot of movies that deal with the paranormal or thriller-like things, but they're fictional. So it gives you an opportunity to take a leap and knowing that it's okay that these things happen. But when it is set really in real events, it has repercussions, and you know, it has an undertow to it that other movies of this ilk don't have, I think. The Mothman Prophecies, which I knew nothing about before I started making this movie, there is a phenomenon that has happened over time in various countries before a disaster happens, where the community experiences a paranormal event. Individuals experience it, people experience it together. And the three main cases that I can cite are the Silver Bridge collapsing in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, which is the context that our movie is set in, Chernobyl, and the earthquake in Mexico. And there is something that happens to these communities before these events take place. What that is, I don't know. And there are different sort of explanations for it, but it is extremely intriguing and certainly authentic, I think.
He's a simple working man who's brought into a heightened sensitivity in terms of these things. I think aside from Richard's character, he suffers from being exposed to these things on a level beyond anyone else. I'm going to steal from Richard on this one, because he once said, I really liked what he said. He said it's a metaphysical thriller. If I was going to say what kind of movie, but I think it's of its own kind. I don't think comparisons should be made. That's what this movie is saying, is that we like to have opinions and say that we know things, or say, like, maybe you come into a room, I say, well, I know what kind of person you are. You're like this other person that I don't know anything about you. You don't know anything about me, except, And I think that's what's interesting about the movie, is that it leaves things open and lets the imagination go free and, stays close to the skin. In Point Pleasant, Virginia, in the late 60s, in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, in the late 60s, a lot of people sort of collectively started having visions. It wasn't clear if they were on the inside or on the outside. And they originally talked about it like it was a bird, some kind of bird, and some reporter called it the Mothman. And this Mothman or bird would communicate with people, make predictions, visit with some people, met a representative called Indrid Cold, and strange events started happening that began to lead up to a quite fateful, tragic kind of happening. It's a genuinely scary movie, genuinely scary. And it's also a very intelligent movie that makes an attempt to talk about what it means to be human and in question. So on one level it works as a really frightening movie. I think one of the reasons it works as a frightening movie is because it's talking about maybe truths we're not looking at inside. There's a few different levels going on.
John Klein had the perfect life.
We were just making sure there was adequate closet space.
Good. This house is yours if you want it. We'll take it. Okay. It's just me.
You didn't see it. You didn't see it. You didn't see it.
See what?
And now, the only thing that matters is to find out what happened.
She knew. She was drawing angels.
The search will take him to a small town 400 miles away.
It's him. I've been waiting for you.
Where sightings of strange creatures seem to foretell the future.
It's a voice, and it's saying, do not be afraid. 99 die.
All 99 are believed dead.
Hello?
Hello, John Klein.
Who is this? What is it?
Whatever it is, it's not coming from human vocal cords.
A story that stretches the underpinnings of reality.
Last night, I saw something that I cannot describe.
A story based on true events.
What happened to my wife? I need to know what this is.
If you knew,
Do not be afraid.
what would you do?
Something terrible's gonna happen.
The story we're telling is really psychological. It's really how it relates to real people and how it fits their psychology and their emotional makeup and the healing that they're going through.
In the late 60s, a series of strange and bizarre events befell a small town in West Virginia called Point Pleasant.
There's clearly something going on here, but the logical side of me can't figure out what it is.
There were sightings of a strange bird-like creature that was dubbed Mothman. There were lights in the sky. A whole pantheon of paranormal, freaky events.
What do you do when someone comes into your office and tells you they saw this in their backyard?
It's a whole community that is involved in these unusual events. So it's a collective experience. And I think their senses are heightened because of it. So there is a raw quality to it that hysteria can have.
This period culminated in the collapse of the Silver Bridge, which is a bridge spanning the Ohio River that connected West Virginia and Ohio. And many of these events stopped happening after the bridge collapse. The legend of Mothman and the sightings of lights and sounds inspired John Keel's nonfiction book called The Mothman Prophecies.
There were 100 sightings in Chernobyl the year the nuclear plant went down. Galveston, 1969, just before the hurricane. They saw it.
I was not interested in making a creature movie. I was not interested in making a sci-fi movie or even a supernatural movie. I've described it as a psychological mystery with naturally surreal overtones.
What happened to you, Mr. Guy?
We have our own universes that are being projected all the time. And my character has gone through a horrendous loss, losing his wife in the beginning of the movie, and this is all related to that. Everything that happens for him relates to that event.
I was married. She saw something. Drew pictures just like this. Who showed you this?
What we have always tried to achieve in this script is create a character in John Klein, played by Richard Gere, who is a total pragmatist. He is a writer for the Washington Post. His entire life has been about finding facts. And now he finds something that he can't quite put his hands around. And that the most logical side of him knows that it is something that cannot exist.
What's in my hand? Chapstick. You're reading my mind, aren't you? You're reading my mind. I have no need to, do I?
So it's a question of whether or not he can believe in something supernatural, metaphysical, or more spiritual.
I think the Mothman is different for each person that experiences the Mothman. And many people don't, and because each person had a different experience, I don't think that you can actually articulate exactly what the Mothman is or looks like or sounds like or feels like.
I think one point we're trying to make in this film is everyone sees something different. It's not like every drawing is exactly the same. Some people hear something, some people see something, some people feel something. Something is happening. It's interpreted in all kinds of different ways.
You know, your hair sort of rises on the back of your neck and physiologically something happens to you. I mean, I think everyone has had some feeling of foreboding or some awareness that is a little beyond what we experience day to day. I think everyone experiences that at one point, a premonition or a feeling that someone's in trouble and they turn out to be, or the feeling that something's terribly wrong and it is.
We have to leave.
No.
I will not live my life like that. I will not make decisions based on messages from Indrid Cold. He may be real to you. He's not real to me.
Okay, get yourself reassigned. I don't want you anywhere near the plant today.
And what if nothing happens? What if there's no great tragedy, John? What'll you do then?
I am not Gordon. I know. I know. I know what's gonna happen.
My character in the beginning of the film has this vision, and other people, my husband, Richard Gere's character, finds out throughout the rest of the movie that many other people have seen a similar vision. So even though he hasn't seen it, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist.
One day, I started hearing voices. The voices became messages. Before long, I was fully convinced that I was receiving predictions of disaster from outside intelligences. But you were, weren't you? John, I had tapes of their voices.
The trouble people have, like Richard's character, and indeed mine, when they feel that something has happened to them, they really can't get taken seriously. It's very, very... Nobody wants to join in, even though they might have some sense that there could be something in it. They don't want to commit themselves to it, so the people who really believe it are very much on their own.
What happened? Many people died. I was investigated, almost arrested. My wife divorced me. My kids stopped speaking to me. Do you know what 4 years in a psychiatric hospital can do to you?
It's what happens when reasonable, sane, logical people are faced with the unbelievable. In this case, the unbelievable is the harbinger of fate, the harbinger of death, okay? Is there something that we sort of normal human beings see?
The real phenomenon in Point Pleasant 40 years ago ended with the catastrophic collapse of the Silver Bridge. To end the movie in the same fashion meant collapsing a bridge built in a style that doesn't exist anymore, and doing so with the same integrity that hallmarks the rest of the film.
In the beginning, we were using a full-scale bridge, a full-size bridge in Pennsylvania, which was built quite a while ago. We filmed on it 6 nights, all freezing, just like it is tonight.
So this is the Silver Bridge, supposedly in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. We've just built a little piece of it here to do the big physical action that you could just never achieve on a real bridge, because we want the forces of gravity to throw these cars over the edge real time. Some of them are going to have people in them, but the people are going to stop before we get over. Then we change them out for dummies and they go the rest of the way.
Yeah, I'm with the bridge and it's fully separated from the car. It looks great.
First of all, there's going to be a car out here.
Car right along here. What's going to happen is we're trying to sell that this portion of the bridge is falling away that way. We can't do that with this. What we'll do is we'll raise that portion of the bridge. Our camera back there will stay level with that portion of the bridge. The stuntman, probably me in this one, will roll down the edge of this car as though this is falling. He's rolling down the edge. Then he'll fall, and then the next cut, we'll see him fall off this.
That's the hinge that this whole thing sits on. There's 3 of them. And it cantilevers up and down on those 3 big hinges. This thing will go up to a 45-degree angle, and believe me, when you're standing on 45 degrees on this, it's like being on the top of a bowling ball. And the forces of gravity are going to take these cars right on down and over the edge, right over there. Is no longer a safety railing. It's been pre-cut, and it's ready to go. It's being held on by cable, so when the cars hit it, it's going to break down, and the cars are going to end up down there on those rubber tires.
Yeah, that looks like you're supposed to. How's the top of your head? Yeah, I was up against the ceiling.
Yeah, you guys done a little bit of jumping. Wow.
To bring down the Silver Bridge convincingly, there must be a second model, built smaller to allow wide shots, but steel and concrete, just like the original.
The model here is around 120 feet long from end to bridge, which puts the real bridge, over 900 feet.
The way that we're shooting this, because we're shooting it with a model, we can shoot it more like it's a live event. It's not this angle and that angle, and it has to be exactly the way that it's drawn. There's a lot of latitude. Often you draw storyboards that are impossible, that you can't shoot the way that you think you can. The perspective doesn't work, or the gravity doesn't work. Because we're doing it as a model, you have the ability to shoot it as though it was actually happening.
These events happen progressively. They start in one spot and then spread. We will cut it with torches. There will be partial amount of the steel that isn't cut through, so that we'll have the actual weight of this model. We'll tear the rest off and bend and twist.
It really is happening. It's just happening in 1/6 scale. But the physics are the same, and the reality of what you're doing is the same. We're knocking a bridge down.
We have to be something different. We have to come from a different place. And I felt that the themes of the movie and the story was pretty classic in what he was dealing with. And I'm personally not really interested in UFOs or aliens. I'm interested in larger issues of perception and surrealism and more abstract human things that I tried to put into it, that even if those become invisible on the story level, that they're there.
The past few months, people have been coming up to me and reporting strange things.
It's about pictures, and it's been the kind of pictures that you show. Do you show a Rorschach test of a Mothman, or do you show a moth?
This isn't just a message, it's a prediction.
It gets under your skin in a different way because this is based on true events. I think that's the thing that is sort of encircling this whole world.
I want to meet you. I already have, John. What do you look like? It depends on who's looking.
I think there are just too many people who are affected by some sense of the beyond, whatever that means to them, for us to easily dismiss it.
Something terrible's gonna happen.
If it makes you feel emotion, mystery, creeps you out, scares you, or if it works on one of those 4 levels in every scene, we're good.
Earthquakes are going to happen. People you know and love are going to die. And no matter what that voice tells you, there's nothing you can do about it.